Warhammer itself is more than just a game. There's a whole universe that surrounds it. You've got the fantasy-themed Age of Sigmar with also like games like Warhammer Underworlds and Warcry. You've got Warhammer 40,000, Kill Team, Necromunda. I mean, there's so much going on here. You can play full-fledged war games with huge armies doing battle across the table, or you can play skirmish games with just small squads of guys going at it. Because Warhammer is a miniatures game, you can't just buy a starter set and go home and start playing. You have to assemble and paint your army. Now, this is the part that I thought I would like the least. I mean, who's got the time to build and paint plastic toy soldiers? I mean, what am I, some kind of nerd? Well, it turns out that I am. I absolutely love the hobby aspect of Warhammer. Building the minis provides some instant gratification seeing them come together in front of you, and provides a lot of customization as many kits allow you to choose your weapons and other alternate bits for your mini, which can affect how they play in game as well. Later down the line, if you want to get fancy with it, you can also kit bash minis by combining different kits to create unique models that give your army a more personalized touch. Once you have the minis assembled, you of course need to paint them. Now you can choose to follow your faction's traditional color scheme, or you also have the freedom to just make it your own. There's no rules about needing to paint your Blood Angels red, just look at my purple boys here. Now, I like purple, and I like the lore and playstyle of Blood Angels, so naturally, I just made purple Blood Angels. The cool thing here is that this army is mine. It's unique to me, and having an alternate color scheme gets attention from people anytime I go to my local game store for a match. And when you become invested in your little plastic toys, win or lose, games become more enjoyable because you spent time creating these figures. And you know what? This might be a shitty Space Marine, but it's my shitty Space Marine, and I love him. Now, I mentioned that the painting aspect wasn't something that I was super interested in going into the hobby. I was here for the game. But I quickly found that painting minis is an incredibly cathartic, almost meditative experience. Put on a podcast or a familiar TV show in the background and just get lost for a few hours. And trust me, a few YouTube tutorials later and you can paint regardless of artistic ability. In a time where I worked from home staring at screens for 8 hours a day, and then I'd hop on my main PC and play video games, or watch TV, or edit YouTube videos for hours, I found having an activity void of screens was a wonderful change. Another plus is that it's always there. It doesn't matter if the internet goes out or my friends aren't online to game or anything like that, it's always ready to go. It's seriously been such a breath of fresh air. The feeling of accomplishment after painting a mini, being able to have something to show for your hours of entertainment rather than just logging off a game. And don't get me wrong, I still love my video games, but this just hits different. One of the best parts about Warhammer is that there's always something to do. If you take Dungeons & Dragons, for example, another game that I really like, but let's just say you're at home and you're really excited for the upcoming game. You might look through your player's handbook, or build a new character, or spend time painting a single miniature for an upcoming game, but that's pretty much it. Then you just wait. And with Warhammer, there's always more minis to build or to paint. I find myself constantly editing my list after each game after I learn what works and what doesn't work with my army, and this in turn leads to buying more models, which then the cycle continues. I play once a week, and I feel like there's never enough time in between games to get everything done that I want to do, and that's awesome as it alleviates the hardest part of most tabletop games, and that's waiting for game night. If all that wasn't enough, you can also build your own terrain, which is also super fun. After all, seeing a huge battle unfold on a 60 by 44 inch table with a bunch of minis and buildings is just such an awesome immersive experience, and that's what makes this game so great. And to top it all off, the game's actually pretty fun. It's complex, and it's certainly one of those games that you'll want to go home and pop an aspirin the first few times you play it because there's a lot going on here. But it's also cool because you can evolve with it and learn it, just like getting into a video game like Overwatch or Apex Legends or something like that. The more you play, the more you learn, the better you get. The only real downside to Warhammer is that it is an expensive hobby. Games Workshop creates some of the highest quality and most detailed models in the world, and those do come at a premium cost to say the least. You can get around this by purchasing bundled starter boxes when you're new, but once you get into buying specific units, it can get pricey pretty quick. To put it into perspective, armies are balanced using a point system. A typical full-sized game is around 2,000 points, but games are also commonly played at 1,500, 1,000, or 500 points. And if you're starting, about 500 to 1,000 is plenty. A Combat Patrol box, which is a starter bundle designed to give you around 500 points for your chosen faction, is a good place to start, and it often has a cost savings of around $80, and they do typically cost you about $120 to purchase. And then you still gotta get the rulebook, the codex, which is the book that has your faction-specific rules and unit stats, And then, of course, the paints, the hobby supplies, and all of that stuff. I'll put a couple links down below in the description if you guys want to check some of these out a little bit more.